Welcome to the Jewelry Resellers Podcast, your go-to source for all things shiny, sparkly, and of course, profitable. I'm your host, Desiree, and I'll be your guide on this dazzling journey through the world of reselling jewelry. We'll be diving deep into the art and science of reselling, uncovering valuable tips, insider secrets, and sharing stories from successful jewelry resellers. We'll explore market trends, industry news, and even discuss how to find those hidden gems just waiting to be discovered in thrift stores, estate sales, and beyond. So if you're dreaming of turning your hobby into a hustle, or if you're a seasoned pro looking to stay at the top of your jewelry reselling game, join me each week for insights, stories, and more on the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. All right, welcome to another episode of the Jewelry Resellers Podcast. I am your jewelry reselling bestie, Desiree, and today we're going to talk about some of the biggest mistakes that I believe jewelry resellers are making, especially in the beginning because you just don't know any better. But I have made a lot of these mistakes. I haven't made all of them, but I've made quite a few of them because I didn't know any better. And so I'm hoping by the end of this episode, you will have a good idea of what not to do so you can really progress much more smoothly as it relates to your jewelry reselling business. So before we get started, I always like to remind you to please join our newsletter family. I send out a weekly newsletter and it is jam-packed with all kinds of interesting tidbits as it relates to jewelry, reselling, industry news. Sometimes I even throw in some discounts and coupon codes depending on what is, available at the time. Now, when you sign up for the newsletter, you will also get a copy of my personal list of the 20 best-selling vintage jewelry brands that all resellers should know. And I will send you that instantly, or you can download it instantly. So if you'd like to get a copy of that list, and if you would like to join our newsletter, all you have to do is head on over to the website. That's jewelryresellerspodcast.com. Again, that's jewelryresellerspodcast.com. I'll also have a link for you in the show notes. Okay, so getting back to today's topic, we're going to be talking about some of the biggest mistakes jewelry resellers are making. And this isn't unique only to new jewelry resellers. I've seen veteran or longtime jewelry resellers make some of these mistakes as well. And I think it's because either they just don't know, or maybe they are still trying to figure things out. I mean, I don't really know. Sometimes I get surprised when I see people who've been doing this for a while, and yet they still have some areas of their business where they even admit that they're struggling, but yet they don't implement steps or changes in order to fix those areas. So I guess the point of this episode is to really make you aware of, like I said, the things you don't want to do, but it's also going to help you figure out what you can do in case you are making some of these mistakes, so you don't continue making these mistakes day after day, week after week, month after month, or even year after year in some cases. All right, so we all know that jewelry reselling can be very lucrative, and there is money to be made doing this. But of course, like any business venture, it does come with some potential pitfalls. Whether you're new or if you're looking to refine your strategies, again, it's really important to be aware of, I want to call these common mistakes, so you can avoid them and improve your business operations, and also improve how much money you make, how frequently you make the money, and all the other things that come along with that. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into my list. I have 12 things that I'm going to share with you today. And these are the things, again, you don't want to do. All right, so starting with number 1, and I think I've said this many times in prior episodes, but it's just not doing enough market research. And when I talk about market research, that is understanding what people are buying and who is buying the items that you are planning to sell. And in this case, the jewelry items that you are planning to sell. Because a lot of people just say, oh, I really like jewelry and I want to sell this and I want to make a ton of money. And I'm just going to buy what I think looks good. And then I'm going to sell it online and everybody's going to be happy. And while in some cases that can happen, it's really not a solid foundation in which to build a fully operational and profitable business. Okay, so failing to understand the target market and the consumer preferences can lead to stocking jewelry that does not appeal to potential buyers. And trust me, I've made this mistake too. I've made this mistake. As a matter of fact, I think this is probably the biggest mistake I made when I was first getting started. All right, so we really have to have some effective market research so we understand, again, what people are buying, who is buying the jewelry that we want to sell, and then all the other things that come along with that. You know, how often do they want to buy this jewelry? What type of price point are they looking to spend or invest in some cases? You know, and then we want to know what is everybody else doing and what is working for them, at least from our own observations. Not that you necessarily have to compete with other people, but you do want to see what already is currently working in the marketplace. Okay, so that's a big one. You want to make sure you do enough market research so you understand the jewelry buying market. And in our case, what jewelry, I guess more like what are people looking for when it comes to jewelry resale? Okay, because I know sometimes we do get new pieces, but that's not always the case. So for the most part, we are selling vintage, pre-owned, pre-loved jewelry. And that is a different target market than people who are looking to buy brand new pieces. Okay, so we need to understand those differences. All right, so let's move on to mistake number 2, and that is incorrect pricing. Yes, I have done this. Oh boy, have I done this. Incorrectly pricing your jewelry can either drive away customers or it can really mess up your profit margins. And boy, I mean, if I had $1 for every time I've done this, I probably would be rich from that. You know, but in the beginning, I didn't know any better. I didn't know. I'm sure there were things that I overpriced, and I know there were things that I've underpriced. But overpricing can make your products uncompetitive, while underpricing might lead to unsustainable profits. You know, and we all understand that. So it's important to balance between fair market value and the cost of running your business and the cost of, buying the supplies and the inventory and all that stuff. So again, this goes back to market research. We have to understand what is the price range that people are looking to spend so we can make sure we price our jewelry items accordingly. Now, I'm not saying you have to be the highest price person out there, and you don't have to be the lowest priced person out there either. But you will have to kind of play around with the numbers so you can make sure that you are pricing correctly. All right? Because we are not in this to lose money. And I think when we get started, some of us are a little nervous or unsure about what we should be pricing our jewelry items at. I know I was. So again, that falls back to the mistake I talked about in number 1, and that's doing the market research, okay? And that will give you a lot of knowledge so you can make sure your pricing is correct and fair. All right, mistake number 3, and I went through this a lot too, at least when I first started, and that was not having an inventory management system. Now, this is crucial because number one, you have to make sure that you can find the pieces when they sell. And then number two, you also have to make sure that you don't have too much or too little inventory, as it relates to, how much money you're making or how much money you're trying to make. Because holding on to too much inventory can tie up your capital. And in the opposite sense, too little may cause you to miss sales opportunities, right? Because someone could be looking for something and maybe you had it, but you sold it and you don't have anything else to offer them. So efficient inventory management ensures that you have enough stock to meet demand without over-investing in slow-moving pieces. All right, so really think about that. How much inventory do you need to have on hand that, number one, is not only easy for you to manage, but it also keeps up with the demand for the pieces that you're selling. And this will take you some time to figure out. I want to say I was probably maybe a year and a half into my business before I got really clear on this, because I just didn't know. I was just buying and selling without really having any type of system or structure in place. And so I just kind of went along with it. And of course, I guess that could work to some degree, but I didn't really start making money until I was really tracking this. And I knew how many pieces I could move per week or how many pieces I needed for the month. And then I bought and sourced my inventory accordingly. Okay, so you will have to take some time to figure that out as well. All right, number 4. Now, this is a mistake I've never made, which I'm happy to say. But this mistake, I do see a lot of jewelry resellers doing this, and that is neglecting an online presence. Now, I'm not saying you have to be a huge social media star, not at all, but you do need to have a presence online in some way, shape, or form. All right, because in today's digital age, not having a robust online presence can put you at a huge disadvantage. Because people, if they're going to spend $100, $200, $500 on a jewelry piece, they're going to do a little bit of research, and they want to make sure that they're buying from someone who has an established reputation, someone who is trustworthy. All right, and somebody that, if in the event they have a problem or an issue, they know there's somebody there that can help them. Now, of course, if you are selling on someplace like eBay or Poshmark or Etsy, that is an online presence, of course. But I've noticed too that with a lot of my buyers, they just like to connect with me and not necessarily having to do that through an online selling platform. A lot of my buyers, they just like me and they want to know me and they like to connect with me as a person. And so you can really use that to your advantage when you are selling your jewelry. Now, for those of you who have your own website, because I know there's a few of us out there that do, this is also important because it'll help you get traffic to your website. And if you're selling on your website, or if you're, doing whatever on your website, you want to make sure people know that it exists. All right, so an outdated or poorly managed website or a lack of social media engagement, that really can limit your reach and your sales potential. And this is another thing I've learned. Just by being visible online, sometimes opportunities will find you because people will start recognizing you and knowing you as the jewelry person. And I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me saying, hey, I'd like to buy some jewelry, or I just came across a bunch of jewelry for sale. Would you be interested in possibly buying this whole bulk lot, or whatever the case may be? All right, so just by having an online presence, you will set yourself up for some amazing opportunities and connections. And this also helps with building relationships. And we've talked about that many times on this podcast about how important that is, especially when you are trying to grow your business and maybe you want to partner with other people. Maybe you want to do collaborations with other sellers or whatever the case may be. All right, so don't neglect having some type of online presence. All right, mistake number 5 is underestimating the importance of photography. Now, I think we all know that jewelry is a highly visual thing. So we want to do our very best to have decent photographs, because poor quality images can fail to showcase the intricate details and the true beauty of the jewelry pieces. And sometimes that reduces its overall appeal. And I can't tell you, especially on eBay, people just, and I'm not calling anybody out, but people, it seems like they're just very sloppy with some of their photos, or they're blurry, they're out of focus, the lighting is terrible. And you don't want to have your stuff showing up like that, right? Especially if you're trying to make the sale. Spend a few more minutes, turning on a light or maybe photographing your items in natural light by a window or whatever you have to do. Learn how to take good quality photos. And you don't have to invest in an expensive camera or anything like that, because I use my iPhone for all of my photos and it's worked great. But you do want to have high quality photos. So learn the settings if you're using your camera phone or your camera even. Learn the settings, learn a little bit about lighting. I promise you it's not that difficult. It may seem a little overwhelming at first, but you can do some research on YouTube just to learn some basics about how to light certain pieces. You can also use a photo box. I know a lot of jewelry resellers do that and it works great because the lighting is fantastic. All right, but you really want to learn how to take attractive photographs so you can engage online customers. Because remember, people cannot touch these pieces. They're not seeing them in person. And so they have to make a decision based on the quality of your photos. All right, mistake number 6 is not setting up your business properly and paying attention to taxes. Now, I am not a tax professional or a business consultant by any means, but you really want to figure out how you're going to set up your business. Is this going to be something that you do as an LLC, or are you going to do this as a sole proprietor? There's different options depending on where you live and the tax laws in your state, whatever. But you really want to figure this out because you don't want to not know when tax time comes around, that you didn't have everything in place and suddenly you have a huge tax bill, or maybe you were not compliant with the laws as it relates to your city, your state, your county, or whatever. All right, so compliance with the laws regarding licensing, consumer rights, import, export regulations, taxes, wholesale buying, all of these things is critical. All right, and you don't want to neglect this because it could lead to some legal problems down the line, as well as potential fines. And I do not want that to happen to any of us. Okay, so meet with an accountant or do some research online and figure out what you need to do and how you need to do it. Just don't ignore this, because I've seen people ignore this and it turns into a mess later on. Okay, now we are on mistake number 7, and this is just insufficient or a lack of product knowledge. I can't tell you again how many resellers I come across who know nothing about the type of jewelry that they're selling. Now, understandably, none of us are going to know everything about every piece of jewelry that exists. Of course not. But if I'm selling, let's say, gemstone jewelry, well, I know quite a bit about that. And so if someone has basic questions, I feel confident that I could answer those. But some people don't know anything. And so not only does that hurt you as it relates to, the pricing and maybe potential sales, but it also hinders you when you are outsourcing, because if you don't know what certain things are or what people are looking for, or if something, looks the way it's supposed to, you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. All right. And not having enough knowledge about the jewelry items you're selling, this is a big one. It can undermine your credibility with customers, right? People will not trust you if you don't know at least what it is you're selling. And again, you don't have to have a huge history or backstory about the piece, but you need to know a little bit about it, just so, again, like I said, so you can answer some basic questions. All right. A successful reseller should be knowledgeable, at least about maybe the materials, how to care for the piece, how to clean the piece, maybe even some ideas on how to wear or style the piece. And sometimes the history or the cultural significance of the pieces will come into play. Now, that doesn't happen a lot, but sometimes it will come up, right? Especially if you have much higher end pieces. All right. So make sure you have knowledge about the jewelry that you are selling, because it will only help you. It will only help you. It will not hurt in any way. All right. Moving on to mistake number 8. Now, this is a lack of a unique selling proposition, also known as USP. So all of us are jewelry resellers, right? And I guess in some ways you can say jewelry resellers are a dime a dozen. But not everybody sells jewelry the way I do. Not everybody sells jewelry the way you do. So you really need to differentiate yourself and your business from competitors, because there's no way you're going to really stand out, because the jewelry reselling community is very crowded. I'm sure we all know that. But if you can figure out how to make yourself stand out in some way, and how you can figure out what's going to be your unique offering to the marketplace, it will help you attract more customers, and it will help you attract more loyal customers. Okay, so, my kind of unique selling proposition is that I host this podcast. I don't know any other jewelry reseller that has a jewelry reselling podcast. Right? And sometimes people like to connect with me just for that reason. They're like, oh, yes, Desiree, I enjoy your podcast. I listen every week, whatever. And so they feel like they know me, or they feel like they can trust me, because I'm already kind of putting myself out there in a way that they can, I guess, resonate with or connect with. All right. Now, I'm not saying you have to start a podcast, but if you want to, that would be great. But what is it that you do differently that nobody else in the marketplace is doing? Is it the way you source? Is it the type of jewelry that you sell? Is it how you showcase your jewelry pieces on social media? Is it how you structure your live shows? Maybe if you sell live, like I do. Maybe it's because you sell jewelry and you sell outfits to match the jewelry. I mean, it could be whatever. But remember, you need to do something different so people can recognize you, and so you get some attention. And so people really, really notice you, and they're like, wow, she's doing something different, or he's doing something totally different, and I love it. All right, so now we are on mistake number 9, and that is, and I don't like to say this one, but this is poor customer service. And I've seen this happen where some resellers just don't really make the effort to create a really good buying experience for their customers. And that's really unfortunate. Because I really try my best to make sure that my buyers have a good experience buying from me. And sometimes it's not easy. Yes, sometimes you will have difficult customers. We all do. But you really want to try your best to give the absolute best stellar customer service that you can, because people will remember that. And if you don't, it could be very, very damaging, both in the short and long term. So neglecting customer service, like I said, can damage your business reputation, and it can lead to decreased customer retention in some cases. So you want to do your best to respond to questions or messages, as quickly as you can. You don't need to drop everything, but I like to respond to questions usually within 24 hours. Most of the time I get to them way sooner than that. But I don't think you should go longer than 24 hours to respond to a question or a concern or something like that. And you also want to be creative in offering, satisfactory resolutions if in the event something goes awry or a customer is unhappy for whatever reason. Okay, so I'm not saying you have to give them free stuff or give them a full refund, but maybe there's something you can work out. Okay, and customers appreciate that because they see that you're trying and they see that you're making an effort. All right, now we are on mistake number 10. And this is a tough one. Not only jewelry resellers deal with this, but I think resellers just in general. And that is not adapting to market changes. Now, as resellers, I think we've seen a lot of changes over the years as it relates to just reselling in general. And of course, jewelry is the same thing. The jewelry market can be very volatile with evolving trends and consumer preferences and all of the things. So we have to really understand that we need to adapt, because failing to adapt to these changes can make your inventory seem outdated or undesirable, right? So now, as it relates to vintage jewelry, I don't think we have to worry about that too much, but I do believe that we still need to pay attention to what's in demand, what the market wants, and figuring out how to make sure we can best serve the people who are looking for those particular things. Also, market changes don't only involve the type of inventory we keep on hand, but also how we're doing business. Because right now, I think one of the biggest market changes that I'm noticing is the implementation of live selling. Now, there's still a ton of jewelry resellers who do not want to do live sales for whatever reason. But if you pay attention to what's going on in social media, on any social media platform, you will see that shopping is huge. And live shopping, live sales, live shows is also huge. That is the trend that we are in right now. And a lot of us have already jumped on board with this. I know I have, and I absolutely love it. But there's still a lot of people who are refusing to even try, or maybe even to, plan to see how they can make live selling work for them in some way, shape, or form in their business. All right, so I'm not saying you have to do everything that everybody else is doing, but you really need to understand and pay attention to the direction that things are moving in as it relates to what we do as jewelry resellers. Okay? So that's just something to think about. Okay, moving on to mistake number 11. This is overlooking return and shipping policies. Again, this is going to vary depending on the platform that you're selling. Or if you are selling on your own website, you should have return policies and shipping policies already in place. And if you are selling maybe in person, or if you are selling like on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, then you need to communicate what your return policy is if you are going to allow and accept returns. And then if you're going to ship your items, you want to make sure you have policies in place for that as well. All right. And you don't want to make it too complicated or confusing. because that can turn off potential customers too. But you want to make sure, again, like we talked about earlier, you want to make sure that you create a very good and, to the best of your ability, smooth buying experience for your customer. And you also want to set up the customer expectations, because you don't want to say, oh, I don't accept returns after the fact that they've already bought something and maybe for whatever reason they don't want it, or it breaks, or it doesn't fit, or whatever. All right, so make sure you communicate that clearly up front, because I don't think you as the seller nor the customer as the buyer, I don't think either side wants any unexpected surprises. So make sure you pay attention to your return and shipping policies. And again, like I said, depending on the platform you're selling, some of those will already be built in and will already be in place. But if not, then think about setting something up so both you and your buyer are protected. Okay, so my last mistake that I've got on my list is not utilizing data and feedback. Now, depending on where you're selling, let's take eBay, for example. eBay gives us a lot of data and analytics as it relates to how much we're making, what people are clicking on, what items, I guess, are attracting a lot of views or attention and all that kind of stuff. So you really want to learn to study your data and your analytics, and also pay attention to the feedback that you're getting, because this will help you make better business decisions. It will help you as it relates to buying inventory. It will help you as it relates to your pricing. And it will also help you figure out if that particular platform is where you want to stay, or if that's where you want to grow. All right, so make sure that you understand your analytics and pay attention to what is working and what is not. Regularly review your sales data, your customer reviews, feedback, all of those things, so you can refine your strategies and improve your products, in this case, your jewelry items, and improve your service as it relates to serving your customers and your buyers and giving them the things that they want. All right, now, I know sometimes it's intimidating to look at your analytics, especially on eBay, because there's so much there. But if you just look at it on a regular basis and just kind of click around and see what type of information comes up and what type of information is available, you will get more and more comfortable, and you will understand it more the more you see it. Okay, because that's how it was for me. The first time I was back there, I didn't understand what I was looking at. And then the more I looked at it, the more it made sense. Okay, so you should do this no matter what platform you're on. And even if you're not selling on something like eBay or whatnot, or Etsy or whatever, you really want to pay attention to your own records and keeping track of what's selling and what's not. Make sure that you pay attention to your bank account, because that's a big thing we want to pay attention to, and see how much is going out and how much is coming in, because it's not only the analytics, but it's also the data of your business operations too. In other words, how much are you spending on sourcing? How much are you spending on shipping supplies? How much are you spending on taxes? All of those things come into play. And so we want to have a good grasp on what that is and what those numbers are. Okay, so those are the 12 biggest mistakes I see jewelry resellers making. Like I said, I have made quite a few of these mistakes. Luckily, not all of them, but still, I've made them. And, sometimes I unintentionally make mistakes too, just because, I'm human. I still don't have this 100% figured out. And I'm still learning, and I'm learning for where I'm at in my business today, because it's very different what I do today than when I first started. All right, so let's run down these 12 mistakes one last time. Number 1, that's not doing enough market research. Number 2 is incorrect pricing strategies. Number 3 is not having an inventory management system. Number 4, neglecting to establish an online presence. Number 5, underestimating the importance of good photography. Number 6, not setting up your business properly and paying attention to your taxes. Number 7 is a lack of product knowledge. Number 8 is a lack of a unique selling proposition. Number 9, poor customer service. Number 10, not adapting to market changes. Number 11, not having strong return and shipping policies in place. And number 12 is not utilizing data and feedback as it relates to your business. All right, so being aware of these common mistakes and actively working to avoid them, you can set your jewelry reselling business on a strong path to success. So just remember, continuous learning and adaptation are key as it relates to reselling jewelry. And I can't predict what's going to happen, and I just know that I want to do the best I can every step of the way, and I want to grow, and I want to learn, and I want to do better every single day. So I hope I can encourage you to do the same. If you do have any questions or comments or feedback as it relates to today's episode, I would love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on YouTube or on the website. I always forget that you can leave comments on the website as well. So I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me. Let me know your thoughts, and I will check in with you again really soon.